Hello YouTube, and welcome back to my channel Fluck Fights. This is a very special podcast episode. We got Lindsay Whittle on, none other than. He's Plaid Cymru's candidate for the upcoming Caerphilly by-election. A big reason I want to do this podcast, I'd like to change people's mind because I have thought this myself. A lot of people, Lindsay, don't like politicians, as you know.
I guess a bit, yeah.
Yeah, but especially young people. And basically, I feel like a lot of time, people feel like they can't relate to politicians. They feel like basically you look at them and they come across like they've never done a day's work in their life, really, properly. They feel like, it feels like they don't know struggle, what it's like to, get up in the morning, have to go to work and basically live paycheck to paycheck, knowing that you might be on the street anytime soon. But for Lindsay, I can tell you now that you cannot say that about, for one. He's got 4 voluntary jobs even now.
Even now, I have 4 voluntary jobs, yes.
I'll get into them in a minute. But I thought, I haven't seen much about this, and I think people would be interested to see this. So how did really early employment, so basically how you went from really early employment and then how did you get into politics?
Okay, well, I was that geeky kid in school who was interested in politics, and I appreciate that not everybody was, but lots of my friends were as well. And whilst all my friends were studying for what was then we called O-levels and A-levels, I was busy knocking doors and delivering leaflets. And all my friends were a little bit more sort of intelligent than me, and they got their O-levels and A-levels and went on to university. I didn't go to university, and I started work when I was 17 years of age, making crash helmets in Stadium Factory, which was on the Pontegwindi Road. It's where the Green Lady pub and the housing estate is now. It was a big factory, and next to it was another factory called Strads where women worked, and men and women worked in stadiums. And I worked 40 hours a week for £2.10, 7:30 till 5 o'clock every single day, standing up, just going along a production line, making the same old things. Hard work. Then at that time you could go from factory to factory, and I went over to work in a foundry for 11 years, and then I realized perhaps that's hard work, and I was made unemployed by Mrs. Thatcher when all the factories in Caerphilly started to close down, and I spent 7 months unemployed on the dole with no money, well, very little money indeed. It was £21 a week and my mortgage was £84 a month, so it was really tough. So once the mortgage was paid, that was no money left.
Yeah, I can imagine. So as you heard, I mean, even now he's a grafter. So you've got 4 voluntary jobs, I said.
Yeah,
Can you tell us a bit more about?
I've worked in the Oasis coffee shop for 8 years, right here on Abertudor Square. And I work in Comivo Junior School, where I went to school in Penrowell, and with a literacy project there. And I work in Comaba Juniors, where again with the literacy project, I sit with year 6 children mainly, listening to them read and helping them if they don't understand what the big word is, or if they struggle. Some children struggle with their reading, and I help them out. And then I also work 1 day a week in the food bank, not the one in Abertudor, but I work in the one in the church in Caerphilly in St. Fagan Street, and I go there. I don't take a penny for all of those voluntary jobs, because they keep me busy, they keep me out of mischief and trouble, shall we say.
Well, that's what I'm going to say, actually. So you're still going out for voluntary jobs. You don't need me to tell you this. You're no spring chicken.
I'm no spring chicken.
You're the same age as my nan.
Oh, right.
So,
well, cool.
You haven't got any plans to retire, though?
No plans to retire. Up here I'm 17 still, and down here I'm 72 still. I don't run for a bus anymore, but I got no need to run for a bus. If I see a bus coming, I just wait for the next one. But look, you're as young. Age is just a number.
I agree.
And I don't like retirement. It's not for me. My friends all love their retirement that I was in school with. I'm still in touch with my school friends that we met when we were 5, because that's how we are in Wales.
100%.
And you will stay with them for the rest of your life. But I don't want to retire. Not yet. Not for a long time. I'll know when it's ready to retire.
Well, exactly. And okay, so moving on then to the matter in hand, this Caerphilly by-election coming up on the 23rd. I was talking to you earlier, and you said again that it's definitely between Plaid and Reform, isn't it?
It definitely is, yes.
Yeah.
Labour, it's been Labour in these valleys for 100 years, and the way they treated the pensioners, when they got in, they promised that they would look after the ordinary working man and woman in the street, and they haven't. They took the pensioners' heating allowance away from them. They attacked the people on disability, the people on PIP, and they didn't go after the millionaires and the billionaires. Yeah. The big companies like Amazon and Costa Coffee companies, they don't pay tax here, and there's billions of pounds not being collected. Those are the ones we need to go for, not the weak and vulnerable. I was brought up to look after people and care for people, and I want to give people a helping hand up, and they just attacked us, and that's why people have left them.
Yeah.
Believe me, there's a lot of anger out there, and they're not going to come anywhere near this by-election, nowhere near.
No, well, it says that all Keir Starmer haven't even bothered to come down to Caerphilly.
Refused to come to Caerphilly?
He couldn't point Caerphilly out on a map.
No, he probably couldn't.
But yeah, so we talked about Labour there. Reform, like you said, is between Plaid and Reform. And their big leader, Nigel Farage. So when I said at the start of this podcast about you can't relate to these politicians, how the hell can you relate to a billionaire, as Lindsay said, prancing about Caerphilly in his fancy suit? And that is someone. You look at Nigel Farage, and how out of touch is he? The fact that he have said that he wants to, this is how out of touch he is with people around here, by the way, he wants to reopen the mines. What's your thoughts?
I don't want to reopen the mines. Look, my great-grandfather was killed in the Singenid explosion. My own grandfather worked underground, and he told me at the time of the disaster, he was 13, and they had to carry his family's body back to the house in the tin bath that we used to have then. We haven't got tin baths anymore, but thank goodness, and outside toilets, but that's what they had then, and that's not acceptable. My Auntie Marion, her brother Billy, was killed in the Windsor colliery, and we've paid the price of coal in these valleys. We've still got, literally, you can see just the colliery waste tip used to be at the end of my garden. They've landscaped it, they've landscaped it again now, they're building houses now, they built Ysgol Park and houses there. I'd rather them build houses there. We don't want more traffic in the valley, but at least we're not losing our green fields. And when people say, oh, not in my backyard, these new houses are in my backyard. When I moved in 40 years ago, there was a colliery waste tip 60 foot high there. It's gone now. And I was hoping that we would have left as it was. I used to pick blackberries over there and go for the walks during COVID. But we've got the housing coming now. But
well, that's actually a point I've got on my list. So we'll get to the housing in more detail as well. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so sticking with Reform for a minute, and they have said, which they seem to be obsessed, or they like to campaign using the tactic of immigration. And they have said that they want to abolish the Nation of Sanctuary. Now, I have seen a lot of things about the Nation of Sanctuary. A lot of it is like misinformation, I would say. And can you just clear up for everyone, Lindsay, what it actually is?
Look, we've been a Nation of Sanctuary since the Second World War. After the Second World War, lots of people came from Europe to work here, to work in the coal mines. We had lots of Italian cafes in the valleys. We had one in Abertrudo, one in Singenid. I remember going down to Brachis in Singenid when I used to visit my grandmother in Singenid. We've got Polish names in most streets. When I went to school in Penrall, we had 4 Polish families, 1 Irish family, 1 Italian family, 1 Cockney family, and we just grew up with these children. Their names are if you look at the history of the rugby and football teams, you'll see them going back literally a century. These people have always been welcome. We even had the Ukraine Club of Singenid when the Universal Hotel, or the Uni as they used to call it, closed down. I used to go with my grandfather for a pint in the Uni, and even he changed it. They used to call it the Yuki. Then it's gone now. There's housing there now, but we've always welcomed these people. We're not overrun with thousands of immigrants here, are we?
No, because that was another thing. So you've just answered it there. I was going to ask you, because I watched the debate on Wednesday. I thought you were brilliant in it.
Thank you.
I'm not just saying that because he sat in front of me. But
he's bigger than me.
I'm the only one who has to walk around here and duck under in this car.
Yes, it's all very low, very low building.
But so going back to it, you didn't get to answer this, but you basically have now. That the question was, do you think that immigration is a problem in Caerphilly? And no, was it 2.9%?
It's 2.9%, and you know, we're hardly overrun. And what we want as well is, if we could control immigration in Wales, then we could have controlled immigration. A lot of the homes and the health workers are from people from Europe who are looking after us in our old age. These people are going to be spoon feeding us, washing us and wiping us, I'm afraid. That's the harsh reality. And some of the homes are saying they cannot recruit people. Now my argument is, well, if you pay them a lot more, you know, maybe you would be able to recruit people, but that's falling on deaf ears. But I know that some of them are working in our homes, and they're very kind people looking after us. The Ukrainians who came here, 85% of the money spent on Nation of Sanctuary was training the women and children who fled Russia's bombs, training them to get employment and helping the children settle in schools to learn the language. They had to have special teachers, and now those children are contributing, and when they grow up, who knows what they'll be. They could be doctors and nurses, professions that we need.
Exactly. Again, the rhetoric around immigration comes from reform, you know, UKIP, things like that. I feel like sometimes, you know, again, it's dangerous, it's misinformation, like Lindsay said, 2.9% here in Caerphilly. I do think, Lindsay, a lot of it is to do with algorithms. I don't know if you know what I'm on about.
I only know a little bit. I'm the wrong generation.
Yeah. So I think basically, I feel like sometimes, you know, whether this is left, right-wing politics, I feel like people can just stumble across a side. All you got to do is like scroll on their phone. They might come across, let's just say, right-wing media, and maybe they'll interact with something. Maybe you know, and then these algorithms, pick up on that. And sometimes then it'll feed them more and more and more, and I feel like then they'll go down a rabbit hole sometimes, and in the end they've gone so far right or so far left, you could say, and then they become hate minorities. They might hate minorities. They might follow figures like Tommy Robinson, who I don't want to bring up on this channel, but that kind of thing, if that makes sense to you. I feel like a lot of it comes.
Well, look, today I've had 3 people on my Facebook page saying, I'm not voting for you. You know, you're supporting all these immigrants coming in. One of them was from Manchester, one was from Sheffield, and one was from Brighton. And I said, well, no, of course you're not voting for me. I'm not standing in those cities. You know,
that's what people need to remember.
So when local people say I'm not voting for you, fine, I listen to you. I'm not listening. With the greatest respect, I've got nothing wrong with Manchester, Sheffield, Brighton, whatever. But I'm only interested in the people of the communities where I live. This is where I live, and you know, I think that's what we've got to care about. Let's look after our communities first, and then I help other people. And look, the Ukrainians are living here amongst us. We don't notice them at all. All.
No, I agree with that. So again, I think we could probably come to agreement that immigration on a whole, a lot of time is blown out of proportion, as in the big issue of it. A lot of people might be screaming at the you know, whenever they're watching this on now, but a big problem, or certainly a big topic to talk about, education. But yet I'm learning that Labour are closing 10, or have closed 10.
10, 5 in the constituency, that 1 here right in Abertydwr. And you know, again, there's a myth going around that Lindsay Whittle supports closing the libraries. Lindsay Whittle goes into Cymru juniors every week, as I've said, for the last 8 years, listening to children read. I have walked year 6 down to the library myself and taken the children around. I try to encourage the boys, because boys are not the best of readers, to say, right, what are you, if you're interested in football, I take them to the sports section. Are you interested in rugby? I take them to the rugby section, and you know, try and instill into them it's important to read. I've got one boy, he's not very good reading at all, and I've said to him, I'm not going to name him, but I've said, well, what are you interested in? He wants to learn to drive a car, and I said, well, when you pass your test, are you going to be able to drive? Oh, I can't wait, he said. I've only got a few years. And I said, you realise you've got to take a written test now? And he was shocked. And I said, look, you're not very good at reading and writing. How are you going to pass that written test? So that's what we've got to instill. I take children to the library. Why would I be opposed to closing a library in my own village? Of course I'm not.
Exactly. And again, that's another thing that people say. People I see on sort of reform, or people from reform, and also people, if Lindsay puts something up, or Plaid Cymru puts something up on social media, you look at the comments and they say, these are the ones who prop Labour up. Or these, they say, don't they, that a vote for Plaid is a vote for Labour, yet I know Lindsay, I've been following him for years, and it feels like you hold Labour accountable more than anyone.
Yes,
so how would that make sense?
I attack Labour. you look at my Facebook pages. Yeah. Some of my videos. I remember when they wanted to close Caerphilly Mountain. You know, there's 2 roads up Caerphilly Mountain. Yeah. On the mountain road side where the golf club is, they wanted to close that off totally. Yeah. And I was fighting them then, and I had 110,000 hits on that video. Yeah. That's a phenomenal amount. 110,000 people saying no, don't close, and they didn't close the mountain road. I've been fighting about council houses being left empty now for 200 and 300 days. Oh, it doesn't sound a lot. That's nearly a year. Here we got people in the Royal Hotel across the road from where I live. There are people living in a single bedroom, and yet they could be put into these flats and houses. But instead, the council's paying the Royal Hotel for them to stay there. I got no issue with that. They're paying the Windsor Hotel, they're paying the Lee Hotel, and yet we've got 350. That's a lot. 350 houses, council houses, empty. In Caerphilly tonight, and yet people are living in 1 bedroom, and sometimes not here, but in the Windsor, there are families living there, and that's not right. We should be living in these empty council houses, and people will do them up themselves. Yeah, you know.
Well, that again. So, talking about housing, talking about holding Labour accountable, calling Labour out. One of the first times I saw you actually, and I knew you didn't mean this to be funny, it wasn't like comedy, but your famous bucket of earth.
Oh right, video. Yeah, that went down quite well. I said if you put a bucket of earth down, the Labour Party will build on it. Yes. You know, and I still think that's right today. That's why I'm fighting people are concerned about the housing coming at TSAF as we come into the valley.
That's it.
But that road is the only road in, and any threat to subsidence to that road is going to cut us off. We'll be going out through the country lanes, and we all know how treacherous. Whenever there's a tragic accident, and I hope we don't get too many accidents, we know it's tough to get in and out of this valley, and we've got to go through the country lanes, and it's gridlock, and we can't allow anybody to dig into that road and threaten this valley, because it's the only way in and out. When I was a boy, I used to visit my gran. Sometimes my mother would walk us up, sometimes we'd catch a bus, and sometimes I'd catch a train. The train goes right into Plascombe Park, where my gran we used to live, I've seen her flat recently actually, and I think, that's where my gran used to live. We used to have a train that got right there, and now we've got 1 road. You can't allow building on that road.
No, it's absolutely bizarre, to be fair. Like, as we said, it's bad enough for the best of times.
Well, with bumper to bumper, I've been queuing back to the garage, and that's crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah. So again, all right, moving on to a massive. I think this is probably the biggest problem in Wales, probably in the UK, the NHS at the minute. Mm-hmm. So basically, you've got people waiting like 3 years for a hip replacement. You've got ambulances that at worst won't turn up. My mother works in the NHS herself, and she works 10, 11-hour shifts, and she can't have a break. And obviously the stress that puts on the staff, they then want to leave. She can't exactly say to someone, well, all right, I'm going to have a half-hour break here, but how can she say that when they're already 2 hours behind? On top of that, then you've got surgeries. With you ring a surgery now, you're number 56 in the queue for an emergency appointment. By the time you get to number 1, you might not get an appointment. So that defeats the object of an emergency appointment, doesn't it? I would say actually that my surgery, Abertrudo, is not too bad for that.
No, it's pretty good, it's pretty good.
But what I will say, Lindsay, is it's going to get worse, isn't it? Because I'm learning 3 or 4 surgeries in this area?
Yes, we've lost surgeries in Gilfach in Bargoed. We've lost Lansbury Park, which is the most deprived estate in Wales. Mm-hmm. We've lost Penrose surgery, which is where I used to go to the doctors. Right. It's extremely scary that we're losing, and one in bed to us as well, sorry. It's extremely scary that we've lost those 4 surgeries. The doctor down here in Thomas Street told me, he said, I had 1,000 new patients overnight. Now, when you go to the doctors, your old doctor would know who you were. He would look at your history on the screen and he'd know you. This poor doctor would have to read up, if I make an appointment, who's Lindsay Whittle? What's his health record? And to read up on 1,000, that's a lot of people, and that's not acceptable. I was in Caerphilly today. I was grabbing a quick bacon sandwich in between electioneering, and the Tonnevellian surgery, the nurse was in the little cafe I was in, and I said, how are things going at Tonnevellian? She said, okay. I said, is it a busy surgery? Yes, she said. We've got 18,000 patients coming to that one surgery. That's a lot of people, you know. No wonder it takes you 2 or 3 weeks just to see the doctor. Yeah. Now, we're pretty okay. If you ring early enough, you can get in. And if you can't get in Abertudo, you can at least sometimes they will send you to Llanbradach. Okay, I'm lucky I've got a car. I can drive to Llanbradach. But I do appreciate if you haven't got a car, it's a bus into Caerphilly and then from Caerphilly to Llanbradach. Well, that's not right, you know. Yeah. We need a health centre, a new purpose-built health centre here in Abertudo, right in the centre, to serve Abertudo and Singhennydd.
So that'd be one of your, what you think?
That's obviously there've been meetings held in Nazareth when they wanted to build the health centre on the green there. Well, that little green just outside the YM by the school, that's the only little bit of green we've got left really in the valley. Just to have a little, we had a little fete there recently, didn't we? And
we did.
I was there, and it was, as Max Boy said, I was there. It was great. It was great, you know. It was great.
This is nice as well. Really.
Yeah, he even gets a beer. Look, I don't get a beer, and this is my house.
No, yeah. What was it called again?
It's called Glow in the Dark. Free
promotion. Glow in the Dark beer. Lindsay pulled me a beer. Yeah. So okay. My last point, my last thing I want to ask you about, Lindsay, is Caerphilly overall. So mainly the town centre, and just little things, right? Like my girlfriend, she says to me all the time, and I think I've even noticed that, but it's funny. She says, "Where's the flowers gone?" You know, like the flowers that come down, used to come down Cardiff Road, stuff like that, which is, you know, again, maybe a small point. But another thing I'd like to ask you, people got mixed opinions on this, but I am interested to know what you think about your opinion on it's not new now, but the Foss market.
Well, I thought that was a waste of money. I mean, it cost £5 million, and the council's excuse was, well, it was grants we received from other bodies. Well, it's still public money, you know, it's still public money. And if you're going to build something, if we built a purpose-built market hall with market stalls, just like the old one, that would have been brilliant. And if it wasn't successful, you've still got the hall. So we could have used it as a concert hall or for any other purpose. But what we have now is shipping containers. Now, shipping containers don't cost, I think there's about 25-30 shipping containers there, and I think you can pick them up with anything between £5,000 and £10,000, because that's all they are, is shipping containers. How on earth did that cost £5 million? And just before it was due to open, they found they hadn't even connected the toilets to the sewerage system, so the opening was delayed. I mean, that's been an almighty mess up from start to finish, and people are new stall holders are going in and out because they can't afford it. That was a waste of public money. Do you know the next what thing they want to build is a brand new train station in Caerphilly for £43 million. Do we need a new train station? Is that my priority? No. Trains and buses, yes, but not a train station. When you go into the station, you go in, you catch a train, you get out again. You know, what do we need a new station for? There's nothing wrong with the old one. You're just stepping onto a train. 43 million, and that's our money.
Yeah, 43. Yeah, and Caerphilly's train station to me is fine.
Yeah, it's fine. They're knocking that red brick building down.
Turn up on time or
no, but they're getting better, and we've got better trains. To be fair, you know, I can praise as well as criticise. We've got better trains now. They're not then just 2 carriages packed out. I've been going to the rugby internationals, and sometimes you can't get on the train. Now you can, and they're every 10, 12 minutes, something like that. That's pretty good. And when it's electrified, it'll be even better. But if you're going to spend that money, you know, let's start. Why not put a new train station at Ystrad College so that you know, students can get on and off the train? You know, because there is a station in Ystrad, but it's a good mile or so walk. By the time they get to the college, they're soaking wet. Put a new station right by the college. That's a good use of money. We don't need and it'll be all glass. It'll be horrible. To an ancient town with a 750-year-old castle, it won't look like.
That's another point.
You know? And then we've got a new pool coming, haven't we? Of course, they're closing the leisure centre, and the swimming pool they're going to put is, the pool is going to be 1 metre deep. So when you do swimming, I don't know if you've seen the swimmers who do the tumble when they get to the other end when they're racing. Like, if you're 6'2", you can't do that tumble in a metre deep.
We don't know what that's like.
Yeah. Well, I don't know whether I can swim at least, but
no.
You know, there'll be no children. How do we know we haven't got a Tom Daly out there who can dive? Well, he or she won't be able to dive in the new Caerphilly swimming pool because it's 1 metre deep. You know, it'll be just over my knees, I think.
So building a new leisure centre.
Again, that's about 30. It's only 35 million. But, you know, they're plucking these figures. We're not playing Monopoly here. Yeah. It's people's money.
So when are they closing the Caerphilly Leisure Centre? Because I used the
the plans are well underway now for the new leisure centre, and as soon as that's almost constructed, within the next 5 years, you will see a change. And it might not sound long, but you'll be surprised how quickly that 5 years will go.
100%, yeah. Okay, Lindsay, that's pretty much everything.
Okay.
I just want to my sort of last words on this would be, I said at the start of this podcast about politicians, how, you know, maybe you can't relate to them or whatever. I'm sitting here with a beer with Lindsay.
That's not bad, is it?
But another point would be, a lot of people say that, you know, that politicians got something to hide, or that they don't want to answer the tough questions. Well, this man has let me into his home today, literally, and let me ask whatever I wanted. So you can't, you know, that says it all.
I didn't know the questions either, did I?
Yeah, exactly. Last word from you, Lindsay. Why vote?
Look, because I'm a local guy. I'm the only candidate with his name and his full address on the ballot paper. You know, everybody knows where I live. That front door is open to everybody 24/7, 52. It's what I do. It's what I do. My father was born and brought up in this village. My mother was born and brought up in Singhenydd. And, you know, this is where I belong. This is where I belong.
Yeah. One last thing I'll say there is, you know, you could say those are just words, but they're not. Because, you know, like I said, 50 years of public service, he's literally living proof, as you said, on your doorstep. So I think you should get out and vote Lindsay Whittle on the 23rd. And while you're at it, can you subscribe to my channel as well? Okay.
I'll have to subscribe to your channel now, Josh, as well. Thanks very much.
So, honest, Lindsay, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
I swear that honestly, it means a lot. And also thank you for earlier as well.
Okay, that's
I met David Ewan earlier as well. So what a day it's been. Brilliant.
Thank you.
Lindsay, honestly,
that's all right.
you, mate.
Brilliant. Enjoy that?
Yeah.